Welcome all you amplifier nerds out there. The beauty on the bench today is this minty Fender Showman. And before we take it apart to give it a good amount of love and care, let's see what we've got there. The front panel is in a good condition as well, and sure enough, the typical Fender black panel layout. Normal channel, vibrato channel, and no reverb. The back panel, well, it shows somewhere, but again, it's in pretty good shape, and it's nothing special. Everything is like we would expect when it comes to a 60s Fender amplifier. But how old is this beauty? Well, the stamp on the tube chart, PD, leads us to April 1966, according to this information that I found in the World Wide Web. The date code on the transformers confirms this year. It's 1966. But what happened in 1966? Well, the Beatles started their US tour, but probably they didn't use Fender amps. In this era, I assume that they were using Vox amplifiers. But maybe these fellows played that Showman amp when they performed their hit Good Vibrations, the Beach Boys. Maybe. But whatsoever, the Showman was indeed a top-of-the-line product in the Fender family. It came either with a single 12-inch speaker or a single 15-inch speaker, except the dual Showman that was equipped with two 15-inch Lansing speakers. But now let's get to work and do some troubleshooting. Oh, yeah, here we have some scratchy pots. No big deal to take care of that problem. Well, let's see if the vibrato channel works. I'm going to plug in my shorted RCA cable to switch on the tremolo circuit. Yeah, the tremolo works fine. So everything looks quite promising. Hopefully we won't find a big problem inside. Yeah, let's see what's going on and flip that chassis around. Well, here's the first issue that I found. I checked the preamp tubes for microphonics, and the phase inverter is noisy. That's interesting. Most of the time it's the first preamp tube, but in this case it's actually the face inverted tube that makes some trouble. Alright, the moment of truth. Let's take a look under the hood. Well, somebody did something. We have 4 original caps and 2 of them are not original. The previous tech, should I call him a tech? I'm not sure if I should do that. Well, he put 2 47 microfarad caps in series to get the right value of 20 microfarad. And a closer look at the old ones shows that they have bubbles, and that means they are leaky. They have to be replaced. And look at this. The previous tech, I'm not sure if I should call him a tech, put some yellow tape across the HT lug of these capacitors to prevent them from shorting out to the metal case. Well, safety first, right? Well, that's really disgusting. I'm shocked. Okay, let's flip the chassis and see what we find inside. I like what I see. Everything seems to be untouched except this bypass cap. Yeah, man, this chassis is super clean. Okay, this is the bypass cap that is not original, but the rest of the circuit seems to be untouched. That's nice, isn't it? Beautiful. Well, there's some white gunk coating these wires. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe some oxidation from the chassis. I don't know. Maybe you know. Leave a comment. Well, I hope it's not toxic, because I'm touching it with my bare fingers. Ooh. You better start thinking before you're doing something. Well, I will survive, I'm sure. Well, the power cord was changed to a 3-prong cord in the past. Well, it's absolutely good idea to do that because you have a safety ground, but again, the work was done very sloppy. Look at this. The ground switch was disconnected, and its purpose now is to serve as a terminal for the power cord. The power cord itself was resting on the tube socket, so it got toasted. Look at this. Again, safety first. The next issue I found was a worn out input jack. And look how important it is that these jacks are shortened to ground when not in use to keep the amp quiet. That's amazing, isn't it? So definitely a new jack is required because bending them back won't last for a long time. Another important part of troubleshooting old amps is to check values. Let's see if the grid stoppers and screen grid resistors are still in tolerance. I expect they are not because of the excessive heat they have to endure, and yes, none of them had the required 470 ohms. Look how far they are drifted. The grid stoppers should have 1.5K, and you can see how far they are drifted either. 3.9 instead of 1.5. Ooh. .2. They all are toast and they have to go. Wow, 6.2. Well, this is the only one who is close to the specification. Okay, it's time to get rid of the old stuff, and I will start with the bypass caps. I really like these moments when I can go wild and snip everything out. But I'm not going to throw these old caps in to my junk pile. No, I put them in a bag and give them back to the owner, because someday in the future a collector might want to put some new capacitors into the old shell just for the looks of it and put them back into the amp. Who knows? So I'm not going to throw them away. Here I'm removing the old leads, and then I'm going to clean up the eyelets before I solder in the new bypass caps. Come on. Oh, here we go. So I'm not going to bore you with 20 eyelets that I clean up. So let's go to the next step and recreate the bias board. For the sake of tube life, the bias board has to be reliable. So it's a good idea to put in new parts. And look how small the parts are nowadays in comparison to the parts in the 60s. And here it is, the new BIOS circuit. The resistor is a new one, the diode and the capacitor are replaced as well, so this will be reliable and guarantee that the tubes will work trouble-free for the next decade. You can see the new grid stoppers and the screen grid resistors. I left the leads longer to place them away from the heat that the tubes will dissipate. And now let's pay our attention to the power supply. Snip, snip, snip. Here I'm checking the balance resistors. They should read 220K. And we have 228. This is absolutely fine, no problem with that. The other one. To 16. Well, good enough. By the way, the dropping resistors tested fine too. So finally we can get all the old crap out of here, and it's time to install the fresh capacitors. And here they are, the fresh capacitors, and I will secure them with a blob of silicone just to make sure that they stay in place. All right, here we go. Good for another 20 years. And now let me show you a flaw that we find in so many Fender amps from this era, the notorious tremolo ticking. You can find information about solving this problem by bouncing around wires or changing the ground layout. But believe me, I tried all that stuff many times, and always the only way to get rid of the ticking was an additional capacitor. Gone. It's so easy. Here I found another issue. This ground wire popped right off the solder joint, and I'm pretty sure that that connection was never reliable since 1966. But it happened when I started to move things around 58 years later. That's funny, isn't it? But it's not a big deal either when you have the right solder iron. As you could notice, this amplifier had no big issues. It was not faulty. It was not broken, but a lot of small things were to do to make it a good sounding amp again. Look at this little roach. Man, how cheerful and lively he's flashing. This little roach is doing his job unseen and hidden in his chassis for about 58 years. I love it. Well, now it's time to start my trusty old Commercial Trades Institute tube checker. And all of the 4 Mesa Boogie branded 606s tested good and strong on the tester. But though the tubes tested fine, the matching was quite a disaster. Look at this. One tube draws 11.4 milliamps, the other one 34.2. Well, that's really a no-no. But the owner gave me a bunch of output tubes, and he asked me to get the best possible out of all these tubes. So I swapped tubes around for a while, and I ended up with this. Quite a nice matching. A little bit cold though. And here we have the other pair. Again, after swapping around a couple of tubes, I found a match. Look at this. So now I have to set the bias to an acceptable value, and then we're pretty much done with this amplifier. And I ended up with this funny lineup of tubes. A Mesa tube with a black bass, an Angle and Fender, and a Mesa tube with a brown bass. But the result is okay. After setting the bias, I ended up with these values, and they are acceptable. Alright, and as always, we will have a final sound check of the 1966 Fender Showman. Showman, what you got?